Hey, lovelies, Lisa here. And yeah, it's day 20 of my Tower month. And as you may have deduced by the rather generic backdrop behind me, I am not in my native surroundings. I am, in fact, in a hotel room in Vancouver, Washington, not Vancouver, BC, mind you. Nothing quite so marvelous. Vancouver, Washington is just like it's right across the border into Washington State from Portland. I'm here for a training. Now don't get me wrong, like I kind of like being in a hotel room. It's kind of, there's something about, oh, big king size bed and cable TV and, get to use the fitness room and microwave popcorn. And anyway, so I'm here for the next couple days. So you will get to know this wonderfully generic backdrop because you'll see it in a couple of videos. Um, anyway, I must say that that's kind of a pretty color sky out there. Yeah. Really enjoying the light. Oh my God. Um, and I can't believe I'll be celebrating solstice in a hotel room. But anyway, yeah, so day 20. And, I only brought a few tarot decks with me. One of the decks I brought was Lacey Bryant's Slow Tarot, which I jumped on the Kickstarter very late in the game. And I'm really glad I got this deck. It was kind of an accident. I happened to be like flipping through Kickstarter and I noticed it. I hadn't heard. I'm not really on Facebook. I'm kind of ambivalent about social media, and I have an Instagram account, but I barely post anymore. And so other than YouTube, I don't necessarily catch up on what's coming out. So anyway, long story short, I got the Slow Tarot, and yeah, I haven't really worked with it. I've just kind of played with looking at the cards and and because it came in a nice box, I may not even get a bag for it, which means I can play with it right away. In the Lisa rules of tarot, when I first got it, I was quite disappointed by the cardstock because we've all gotten kind of snobby about thick cardstock, and this is quite thin. But it's got that linen finish, and it feels like playing cards. I'm sort of now like really obsessed with my playing cards. In fact, on the way here, I stopped at Walgreens. Walgreens has a really great selection of bicycles and just picked up a couple that were on sale, the Black Tiger deck and the House Blend. This is a really, really wonderful deck, actually. And so, these feel like playing cards. And in fact, the deck feels really nice. It's finished pretty well. And after what I was saying about Dame Darcy's Queen Alice, I realize how much, for me, it isn't just how the individual cards feel, certainly not just how they look, but there's also something about what it feels like to hold the whole deck and to shuffle the deck. Anyway, these cards, the other thing about these cards that I appreciate in a world where so much is digitally generated, that this artwork she painted over the course of like 4 years or something like that, a number of years. She painted 78 canvases, and she worked with Drew Clark, her like tarot mentor, and really, as he explains in the little brown book, really thought through the imagery. Didn't just kind of do a take on the traditional, like Pixie's traditional Waite-Smith imagery from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Really sort of tried to modernize. It reminds you a little bit of Robin Scott's efforts in the Urban Tarot, which of course is based on the Crowley-Harris system lineage, the Tote lineage. But it reminds me a little bit of Robin's project, where she was really trying to think about this through the New York City, but that effort to update the imagery. This doesn't have that kind of tight thematic geographical location, and it also doesn't limit itself to contemporary images, but she still does really work with conceiving each card, and each card, Drew Clark says, the cards are all layered with symbolism, and the individual components all have meaning, and some of them, I like better than others. I admire there's a specificity to this deck, even if it's carrying a lot of esoteric meaning. There's a sort of specificity to the bodies and the faces. Kind of sad looking Empress, which is interesting. And some of that specificity feels nonetheless a little cliched, like that Emperor. In fact, I think the major arcana in this deck is less interesting than the minor arcana in some ways. But even there, some of the choices are really cool. Some of my, favorite cards so far. I think this is her decision to call justice balance. Where is that? Yeah, that must be. Yeah. Is interesting. And that image is interesting. Temperance is sort of imagery of moderation, I guess. Is interesting. I don't quite buy it. Body images, she works with different body types, but they can sometimes be a little, perhaps, problematic, like having the devil, which is renamed Temptation, have a kind of conventionally fuller figured. But a lot of cool stuff. So this is the Tower. We'll come back to that in a second. A lot of cool stuff. And in fact, where I get most excited, I think, as I was saying a second ago, is this is the Six of Wands, is in the minors. I really like that Eight of Wands, although it is reminiscent of other, I'm trying to remember what deck. There's a deck that this is reminding me of, and I can't call it to mind right now, but that imagery of birds. I really love this Nine of Wands. Really love that. This Ten of Wands. I think she does some really great things with her pages, especially in the courts. This has got to be one of the all-time most badass Queen of Wands. Just amazing. And then, this King of Wands is really, I want to know this story. The aces are all borderless and have like slightly different colors in them than we see elsewhere in the deck. As a whole, the color, it's Five of Cups. It's kind of wonderful. As a whole, the palette is, it's a little bit monotonous. I wish there was a little more variation. Things shift the most noticeably, I think, when we get to the swords, which really do have a kind of airier feel to them, cooler feel. I'm holding up the Seven of Cups for so long. I love that the cups are teacups. Interesting choice. She works with age in ways that I think is just kind of wonderful. Look at this Page of Cups. I mean, that's lovely. Really, really lovely. And some of the choices I'm not as crazy about. Some of the cards don't necessarily make strong choices. It's a really pretty Six of Swords. Not sure if it's does something so extraordinary. I like the color palette with the swords, but I think that's where she varies the least from the Rider-Waite imagery. But then again, this Page of Swords, I think it's kind of brilliant. So she captures the youthfulness of the Page of Swords, like that Queen too. But it's not just saying these are young figures. It's doing something else. This Two of Coins just makes me smile. Anyway, I could go on and on, I guess, and I should probably stop. But the Slow Tarot. So I really do want to slow down and spend some time with the Slow Tarot. This guy. So, in the Little Brown Book, the interpretation that's given is very similar to, I mean, it seems quite traditional. It's about hubris. It's about, well, I'll just read it. What goes up must inevitably come down. That is the lesson of the tower. An edifice of stone, a respected social profile, a carefully stacked pile of cards, all are impressive accomplishments that we use to draw attention to our prowess. Another thing that unites these examples of the tower is their inevitable doom and the spectacular nature with which they crumble. The tower represents the seeker's hubris, so pride, right? This is a card that's about pride, and the destruction that it can cause when they let these emotions rule their behavior. So, the ways in which pride goeth before a fall, just how important it is to notice that tendency to puff the self up with accomplishments, with these edifices, these constructions, and that they will inevitably fail. What's interesting to me is that the choice here is of a house of cards, right? And I love having the Queen of Wands, black cat. I don't think she's a black cat in this deck, but that kind of, very traditional pussy image from the Queen of Wands in the traditional Rider-Waite imagery. This card that's all about kind of vitality and vim and the flow of sexual energy and of energy per se. And here's among all the many other things that a black cat signifies, but here the pussy is right by the side of the house of cards. It's going to crumble down. But here's the thing, and that's why I was drawn to this card. Why I, maybe not you, but why I love playing with cards is precisely because I don't construct edifices out of them. Why I like playing with cards is the shuffle, the sense that I am not constructing. I'm actually allowing the universe to move and to flow, right? It's the shuffle. It's the willingness to let the cards fall where they will, the willingness for there to be a universe that moves in sync with all things that move. I'm not creating a house of cards. Instead, I'm laying out my cards. I'm allowing randomness to be spread, and then I'm looking and seeing and taking in the patterns that have emerged. The tower, it seems to me, is less about what it means to build. It's less about the cautionary tale of building things up, constructing that house of cards. And it's more about letting the chips fall where they may. It's more about the way things fall. It's more about this movement of the universe that seems completely random. It is random. It's chance, it's life, it's what is alive. It is what is unconstrained. It is what is living and current and sharp and sparky and vibrant. It's about what's in motion. It's about things falling. And things fall into place, not like they fall into the place that I planned. They fall into place, into whatever the place is into which they fall. And that's when meaning becomes apparent. I don't know if this makes sense, but I just have this strong image that there's something about allowing the world to fall, allowing time to unfold, allowing the world to be just as it is, in motion. And that allowing is where meaning finally can take root. So now I've shuffled shuffled these cards, are like all mishmashy, so I'm not going to be able to find the tower again easily. We imagine perhaps that we can build these house of cards. That's our fantasy. The universe is always falling. Everything's always in motion. We're always in the midst of the shuffle, right? And so in some ways, it seems to me, waking up, growing up, being at ease, being at peace, requires actually just allowing ourselves to shuffle and be shuffled over and over again, letting the chips fall where they may, and letting the patterns emerge out of what at first appears to be random chaos, but on second and third and fourth and fifth glance reveals itself as life. Okay. Scratch head. That's what I got tonight. A long and rambly video in a generic hotel room. As always, thank you for joining me, for bearing witness. And thank you so much for your practice.